Hi everyone, welcome back to Fever Dream. It's been quite a while since I've made one of these videos. It's an actual video. I'm here because I want to talk a little bit about some of my favorite games that I think are a little bit lesser known and that I'd like a lot more people to, well, have the opportunity to play. Again, just like my list of anime that I put out a little while ago, this list is not organized in any particular fashion. I just want to put them out there so that you know what is out there to play. All of these are on the Nintendo Switch. I am a simp for Nintendo. I have played a lot of good games in the past months, being with quarantine and everything, and so it becomes very difficult for me to choose my favorite games because it depends heavily on my mood, and I've played so many different genres that it's very difficult. I'm sure you know the feeling. In any case, underappreciated, as I said earlier, in this context, I don't really want to define myself too heavily in what I want to put in these videos because I want to remain somewhat unrestricted in what I can and cannot put into these. So in this case, they're just things that I think you should check out. Whether you've heard of them or not is completely beyond me, but my bet is you probably haven't heard of a lot of these games. First up on this list will be Katana Zero. Katana Zero is a game I picked up fairly recently. It just went on sale. It looked very interesting to me, so I picked it up. One game that seems very similar to me in just the vibe I guess it gives off would be Spectre Knight. Well, not Spectre Knight, I think it's Spectre of Torment. It's the third? Yeah, the third installment in the Shovel Knight series, when where you play Spectre Knight. It's a very, I don't know, it feels very fluid to play, if that makes any sense. Katana Zero is kind of a cyberpunk samurai kind of, well, you're not exactly a samurai, but you got a katana. You're more ninja-y in exactly what you're doing, but the actual gameplay in Katana Zero is very fast-paced. It's very quick. There's not a lot of mechanics there to get used to over time. Really, in the first level, it teaches you all you need to know about the mechanics that you'll be using. Really, you can just slash people. You can actually hit bullets back at people who fire them at you, and you can pick things up and throw them at them. In addition to that, you are able to slow down time for a certain amount of time. And that will help you organize yourself as you're running through these levels, because as I said, they are very fast-paced if you're doing them fast-paced. I mean, I guess you could do them slow, but that's not as fun to me. Additionally, each level is broken up into different screens. I mean, I say screens, but I guess they're levels. Each place you go to is a collection of levels in which you go in and you have to defeat all of the enemies on each level without taking a single hit. Which can be very difficult. However, by the time you get it all down, it feels so good to just blast through all the enemies. And that super cool feeling after you've been able to beat them all up is only made even better by the fact that after you complete a level, it shows you a playback of everything you just did, but in real time. So you get to see all of your stuff as if you were a normal person. One of my other favorite parts of Katana Zero doesn't even have to do with its core gameplay, but it's actually the dialogue options that you have with different people. Most of the time when you're having a conversation, you have several options to choose from to say back to them. But right above that is a progress bar that's filling up as the conversation with them goes on. And while they're still talking, their text box fills up slowly, and you can't skip over it like you may be inclined to do as the pro gamer you are. If you choose to talk when they're still in this red portion you see here, you are interrupting them, and it will affect the way the conversation goes after that. Unfortunately, it doesn't affect the story all that much, but it is nice to have that extra bit of characterization in the world to see the people actually reacting to you and what you choose to do in that circumstance. And of course, the story in Katana Zero is very good as well. I'm not going to say much about it here because I highly encourage you to go out and pick this game up and give it a try, because it is very good. However, you should know that the story right now is not done. The creators of Katana Zero have been putting together the rest of the story that they will be releasing as a free update from what they've told us so far later, hopefully this year. I'm going to put a tweet up from ASCIIsoft. Is that how you pronounce that? I'm not entirely sure. However, what he's saying there, as you can see on screen now, is that the DLC is going to be 3 times its original size.
Hey everybody, Future Jacob here. Actually, after I finished filming the video, I hopped online and found a blog post from ASCIIsoft talking about the DLC, just giving us some updates. And actually, as you should be seeing on the screen right now, the DLC will now be 6 times the original planned size, and it's going to be about half the size of the original main game. There's going to be a bunch of bosses and new mechanics and things added in, so I am very excited for that, needless to say. But there's still no release date announced due to, slowing, due to things that happened last year, obviously, with the pandemic and everything, but be looking out for that. I will put a link to the blog post in the description below, though, so check that out if you're interested.
So, please keep an eye out for that. I'm really excited for it when it comes out because the story so far leaves off on kind of a cliffhanger a little bit, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. Next up is River City Girls. River City Girls is a beat-em-up developed by WayForward, who has made a lot of other games like, I believe it was Shantae and a couple other things. They're very popular. In River City Girls, you choose to play as either Misako or Kyoko, who ditch school to run off, beat people up on a quest to save their boyfriends who have been kidnapped, according to a text that they received at the beginning of the game. It is a fairly simple beat-em-up. If you've played Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which has been receiving quite a lot of publicity recently, you'll know a lot about what this game is. I think it takes a lot of inspiration from that game, which is also fantastic. If you haven't checked that one out, you should, especially if you like beat-em-ups. But in River City Girls, which is the topic of this section of the video, it's very easy to understand in River City Girls. I have very few complaints about the game. Really, the only ones I have are about the precision of a couple of control schemes that they have. Like, you need to be very, very, very precise on your spacing for a couple of different moves, as well as reviving your partner. Even with the game being quite simple and easy to understand, it does a very good job of mixing up the gameplay and letting you have your own personalized experience due to one dojo that you can go to spend your money to learn new moves. You earn money by beating people up, because that's what the game about. That's what the game about. What am I talking about? There are lots of moves that you can learn in this game, but you learn them as you want to. You learn the moves that you want to learn earlier than others, and so you go adding move by move to your arsenal that you have. There are lots of fun bosses in this game, and there are quite some big names as voice actors here. I believe Jacksepticeye is one character named Godai, and I think even the Game Grumps are in here as 2 shopkeepers, I think. So they don't have a huge part, but they're there. Really, there's not all that much I can say about this game, except that I had a lot of fun with it. After you beat the game once, you can go back and play it through again with their boyfriends, who have been unlocked as playable characters. When you're playing as Ricky and Kunio, their movesets are completely different, but the dialogue doesn't change at all, which is a little bit unfortunate, but completely understandable. Also, there is a secret final boss if you get some collectibles, so be on the lookout for those. Also, one last thing I want to mention about this game, the soundtrack is incredible. They got a lot of really good people on this thing. I unironically listen to this music all the time outside of this game. Have you heard of Supergiant Games? What about Hades? That one should probably ring a bell at this point. Last year, Hades was a very critically acclaimed game. Won a lot of awards, nearly got Game of the Year, and I think did in a lot of places. However, I am not talking about Hades today because you already know about Hades, and you should play Hades if you haven't. It's a very good game. What I am talking about today is another game that was made by Supergiant Games. It's called Transistor. The reason I mention Hades is not only because they were made by the same developer, but also because when you play Transistor, you can see a lot of the DNA of Hades in there. Really, just looking at the game, you can see right off the bat that the art style is very, very similar, and the gameplay is very, very similar. Now, the difference is this is not exactly a roguelike. However, it does take a lot of the things that Hades has perfected. Well, I suppose Hades took them from Transistor. But it has a lot of some very similar mechanics to Hades. Such as, if you've played Hades, you know about the mechanics that they use to help you learn about characters in the story. Most of the time, to learn about them, you either have to gift them something to the direct character, or you need to use a specific power set while you're playing through the game to learn more about those specific gods. That's specifically with the gods of Olympus, of course. In Transistor, each one of the different powers you can use attached to the massive sword that you carry around is connected with a person that you learn more about by using those powers in active, passive, and secondary slots. Each of these different powers does different things in different slots, meaning that there are tons of different combinations that you can come up with. So your playstyle can be very, very individualized, despite the fact that there is only one weapon that you're using technically. However, there are many different attacks. It's difficult to talk about this. They're like powers that you attach to the weapon. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Additionally, in Hades, it takes a very, well, not very unique, but it takes a unique look at the dying mechanic in video games, right? While you're in a run, sometimes you can revive right on the spot with a Death Defiance. And when you die for good, each run you go all the way back down to the bottom and you have to start all the way back up again. In Transistor, there's also a very unique take on dying. When you get to 0 hit points in Transistor, one of your powers or one of your slots can overheat, and so you lose access to one of your moves. By the way, each slot is bound to one of the face buttons on your controller, so you lose access to one of those entirely. And so as you die, you gain less and less of an advantage, but once you hit 0 hit points, you lose a slot and you go back up to full health to start up fighting again. Now, I really like this mechanic, especially because, like I said, there are so many different combinations, and this way you lose access to that power, not only the slot, but the power that was in that slot for a little while. And so you can't get complacent and stuck with the same moveset for very long, especially if you're dying a lot. That way you can rotate it out and experiment really easily with new things. Well, it's not easy to experiment, but the game forces you to. In terms of story, Transistor is very ambiguous with the way it tells the story. You are a player in a much larger story than just what you see. And so the experience you can have with it varies greatly from person to person, depending on where you decide to go as you're walking through these areas. Starting off the game, you barely get introduced to your player character, as well as one other character that's there along with you the whole time, before you just get tossed into the game to try and figure everything out on your own. With all of those factors together, including the information you can learn about the people tied to each of your powers, the information each person who plays this game knows by the end of their playthrough can be vastly different. Now, I want to be very clear here. Transistor is not a Hades. I played Transistor far before Hades even came out, and I loved the game. And I definitely think you should give it a look, even if you didn't particularly enjoy Hades as a game. I also think you're a little crazy if you didn't enjoy Hades as a game, but you should check it out anyways. They are very different. But it is also very nice to go back and play Transistor now after I have played Hades and see where Supergiant Games came from before making this huge hit that Hades is now. Do you happen to have any good friends or family living with you or close by that you can still meet up with without risking your life or theirs? Yeah, me neither. It seems that things are getting better slowly with this whole pandemic thing, so hopefully pretty soon you'll be able to have some friends over again. And for when that happens, my next pick on this list is called Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time. Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, or just Lovers as I'll be referring to it after this point, came out in 2015 on PC and Xbox and was later brought to the PlayStation and Switch as well. To be completely honest, this game is very simple in concept and in execution and requires very little explanation, so I'll keep this brief. Just check it out. This game is a 4-player local co-op space adventure with a very cute art style. It starts off with a catastrophic event that threatens the destruction of all of the love in the universe by the forces of anti-love. And so you and up to 3 other intrepid adventurers need to set out on a prototype spaceship to defeat all of the forces of anti-love and restore love to the universe. That's basically it. You and 3 other friends, up to 3 other friends, take over a little spaceship which has several positions that you can man, and you are free to switch between those positions as you wish. You can actually run around inside the little spaceship as well. Those positions include gunnery positions on the 4 corners of the spaceship, I guess, just top, bottom, left, and right, as well as shields, which rotate around the exterior of your spaceship, and engines, which also does the exact same thing. In addition to these positions, there are also 2 stations, which are not exactly positions. One's a big old gun, and the other one, which is maps. So that you can see what's around you. Every single one of these positions as well can be upgraded using different gems that you can find around each level, or each series of levels, I suppose. Those gems include power gems, beam gems, and metal gems, which later on in the game can be combined with one another on different weapons to create very, very powerful and wacky combinations. There are 4 constellations, or collections of 4 levels, that you can play through in this game, each level in each constellation being procedurally generated, where you have to save certain friends around there before finally facing a boss at the end of the constellation. That is basically the entire game. And speaking from my personal experience, it only takes about an hour to beat each of these constellations with 3 other friends, and we were playing quite casually. The game is quite short, so if you've got like 4 hours to kill with some friends, I definitely give this one a look. It should be fairly cheap at this point, and it should go on sale quite often, I think, as well. Last on our list for today is a little game called Murder by Numbers. So Murder by Numbers is a simple game with simple mechanics to match. If you've ever heard of Picross, that's all you need to know. This game is basically just Phoenix Wright with Picross. That's all. You're trying to solve murder mysteries, but every single piece of evidence is locked behind a Picross puzzle. The explanation in universe is that you are a robot and you are decoding pixelated images. If you haven't heard of Picross somehow, I'll just give you a simple explanation. Picross is a simple puzzle game, somewhat like Sudoku, where these numbers on the side of the square dictate which tiles you fill in on the inside. Usually, Picross puzzles will end up having you draw out a little simplistic image of something by the end of it, but they can also be complete nonsense as well. Gameplay in Murder by Numbers is very, very limited. Really, the only things you can do are do Picross puzzles and very occasionally make the odd dialogue choice in some conversations. However, that has no bearing on the story and simply serves as a way to interact with these characters a little bit more. In reality, the only thing you're doing is Picross. That's really all I've got to say about it. I myself got a fair bit of enjoyment out of the game, but I personally like to stretch my brain quite a bit. I've always loved games like Professor Layton and Phoenix Wright. So if you like those games, and it sounds like a puzzle game like this would be up your alley, definitely check it out. But if you're losing interest right now, don't feel the need to. I mean, if it doesn't sound like you're going to like it, you're not going to like it at all. Definitely check this one out if you like Picross and murder mysteries. If you don't like either of those 2 things, I would consider it, I guess, first before actually making the purchase. So, what did you think of my list? I hope there was at least something on here that caught your eye that you might be able to check out and see what's going on there. As I said before, all of these are on the Nintendo Switch. That's where I played them, but I'm sure they show up in other places as well. If there's anything you think that could go well on one of these lists or that you'd like to recommend to me, please leave it in the comments below. I'll be sure to check them out, read through all of that. I'm hoping to make more videos like this in the future. I've got a backlog of games that I'm playing through, trying to find good ones that I can put in videos like this in the future. In the meantime, feel free to check out whatever video I've got up on screen right now. It'll probably be something about Indivisible, because I'm doing a playthrough of that right now. And I'm hoping to start one of No More Heroes 2 very soon, before No More Heroes 3 comes out at the end of this year. But, in any case, like if you like the video, comment if you've got something to say, and subscribe if you want to see more. I will see you all in the next one. Have a wonderful day. Bye.